Australian $2 banknotes. Let's take a look at who's on the banknotes, the values these banknotes can bring, when they were produced, and some of the differences between the banknotes over the years. We'll start with the values, which is something that's always interested me about the notes. So I like to use this book here, the Renniks Australian Coin and Banknote Values book, and I flick to the $2 banknote page. So this is it right here, and in the current edition, it's on page 320 down here. So these are all the different values all through here. These are all the different values of the $2 Australian paper banknotes. So up to the most expensive, most valuable one here is $11,750. So that is quite valuable. But there's a range of values. So let's have a bit of a look at how you value your banknotes right now. Starting with the more common ones like this one right here. To work out the value, you need to know what year the note is from. And these signatures on the notes right here determine which year they are from. So you need to look at them and go, what is that? So in this book right here, if you flick back to the page, which is before the $1 banknotes page, it has an identification chart for the signatures on the notes. So this particular one right here, we're looking at that and that. Which is that note right there, which is a Johnston, and this one right here, which is a Fraser. So that's a Johnston Fraser note. We can flick back through to the $2 banknotes page, and then we can look for Johnston Fraser. Now I know it's this one here, but these are all the different signature combination: Johnston Stone, Knight Stone, Knight Wheeler. But I know this one's a Johnston Fraser here. So then we've got the banknote right here. Now there's 3 different rows of values through here. So what you have to do is look at these letters on the note, which is before the serial number. This is LNF. So if it's a first prefix, which is the first run of the notes, it'll be a KRQ, which is more expensive. They're more valuable because there's not many of those around. Or if it's got the letters LQG, that's the last run of those banknotes, and they are more valuable as well. So if it's not either of those 2 letter combinations, it fits this first row of values right here. All right, so that's what this one is right here, LNF. It doesn't say the letters because there's so many different letter combinations, but it fits into this first row right here. Now, there's different values, so that is for the different levels of condition. So we've got uncirculated condition, about uncirculated condition, and so on. And to get an idea on what fits the description for those, you go back that page before the $1 notes, and it's got a glossary or a condition grading definitions right here. So you can read that and determine from looking at your banknote very carefully what category it fits into. So for me, I know this banknote is in uncirculated condition, it's in perfect condition. So that means this banknote's valued around that $12 mark, which is a guide. This is a guide for values, but around that $12 mark for that particular banknote. Another quick example right here, the Coombs-Wilson. I know that signature is Coombs-Wilson, which is the first year of production. So 1966 Coombs-Wilson. So this note, I know that note's in perfect condition, so it's $120 value for that particular note. Now, for these really high values you see in the banknotes right here, these ones are starred notes. You see here star, 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 star. So all of those really high valued notes are starred notes. Now, what they are actually replacement notes. So again, if you go back to the page before the $1 notes, it has information about what star notes are. So a decimal note with serial numbers commencing with the prefix beginning Z and ending with an asterisk like that, like it's a star, is a star replacement note. Issued from 1966 to 1972, such notes were used to replace faulty notes during printing. So when there was a fault in the note when there was printing, they replaced it. So they have the letters on the banknote, and then at the start of the serial number that has that star, and then the rest of the serial number. Something else to become familiar with, especially on the 1976 notes, are center thread and side thread, and also the OCRB font and the Gothic font. So what you do for that is you go to that page again before the $1 banknotes, and we've got here center threads. Now that center thread is a security feature, and let's read it here. So from the commencement of decimal currency in 1966, a metallic security thread was embedded in the paper near the center of each note, approximately 65 millimeters from the left edge of the front in $1 notes and 70 millimeters for other denominations. From July 1976, the thread position was moved to approximately 55 millimeters from the left in all denominations to avoid undue wear and tearing. The position of the thread can vary by up to 5 millimeters either side of the 55 millimeters. So I think they moved it from the center because when you're folding the note, it would wear the note out a lot quicker. And then also the Gothic and the OCRB serial style. So it's like a font style, I suppose. So this is what the Gothic serial font is, and it looks like this on the notes. And if it's an OCRB font, it looks like this. Now, for me personally, it's quite easy to tell with the 9s. So the 9s have that really loopy, for the Gothic, it's really loopy underneath, whereas the 9s come down on the diagonal. And also the 3s as well. Now, it doesn't have a 3 example there, but the 3s are quite rounded as well. Here is a center thread and also a side thread note. Now you can't see it with the naked eye really. Sometimes you can view it, but what you need to do is you need to put a light on in the background. So I'll just flick this one on and you can see that security feature thread through the middle of the note. And you can see here that this is a center thread, so it's a bit further across, so halfway through the wheat in that particular note. Whereas this one down here, it is a bit further across on the banknote. So these two notes here are lined up equal to each other on the side of the note here, and you can see the difference in where the positioning is on that thread. And the one down the bottom here, that's also a side thread note from then on. The banknotes had Commonwealth of Australia up until 1972, and then it was changed to just Australia on the banknotes up until 1985, which was the start of the last run of the $2 banknotes here in Australia. Now let's take a look at who's on the Australian $2 banknote and why they are on the $2 Australian banknote. So this book right here, it's called Notable Australians, Historical Figures Portrayed on Australian Banknotes. And it's put out by the Reserve Bank of Australia. I was gifted this book, so I'm not sure exactly where you get them from, but I'm sure you'll be able to pick one up from somewhere. But this page here talks a bit about the first character on the banknotes, so we'll go through this right here. So the first person is John MacArthur. So John MacArthur, 1767 to 1834, sailed with his wife Elizabeth and their infant son on the Second Fleet to New South Wales, arriving in 1790. 3 years later, he established Elizabeth Farm at Parramatta that he named after his wife. MacArthur's quarrelsome nature led to a number of disputes with the colony's governors and to a duel with Lieutenant Governor Colonel Patterson. Patterson was wounded and MacArthur was sent to England in 1801 to await court-martial. He turned the trip to his advantage by taking samples of fleece from the flocks, which impressed British clothiers and their quality. MacArthur styled himself as the colony's representative of the industry and wrote his statement of the improvement and progress of the breed of fine-wooled sheep in New South Wales, 1803, for the government. He secured Spanish sheep from royal flock and a grant of further land that he named after his patron, Lord Camden, the Secretary of State for War and the Colonies. The MacArthur's house at Elizabeth Farm, Parramatta, is one of Australia's earliest surviving farmhouses. It is open to the public as part of the Sydney Living Museums. So this is it right here. So on the page over here, this is the portrait that was stylised. It was probably used to create the portrait on the banknote right here. And also a little note down here on the page too is that we've got Captain Cook as the what do you call it? The little feature in the background when you put the light on. So I'll just show you right now. So Captain Cook's watermark, you can't really see it on the banknote, but when you turn a light behind, you can see Captain Cook's image show up in this white panel of the banknote right there. So that is a watermark for the $2 note. And now the gentleman portrayed on this side of the banknote with some wheat there. Let's find out. We've got William Farah. William Farah, 1845 to 1906, immigrated to Australia in 1870 in the hope that the climate might improve the condition of his tuberculosis. He settled in New South Wales where he focused on breeding wheat that was more resistant to disease and dryness. His best known variety of wheat, Federation, was named after the Political Act of 1901, which united Australia's individual colonies into a single nation. A sheath of the Federation variety was included in the representations of wheat on the banknote. Farah's experiments also assisted in improving the standard of the country's research and education in agriculture, which he believed had remained undeveloped since the colonial era. In his pamphlet of 1873, Grass and Sheep Farming, a paper speculative and suggestive, Farah noted the high standards of agricultural education in North America, where colleges were established in most states and offered both theoretical studies and practical instruction. Farah suggested that they accounted for the country's immense strides in this area, whereas Australia's approach seemed to be paralysing all progress. Among other commemorative tributes to William Farah's achievements is the naming of the Farah Memorial Agricultural High School near Tamworth, New South Wales, the country's only public day and boarding agricultural high school for boys, founded in 1933. A suburb and primary school in Canberra have been also named in his honour. And here we go, that's the banknote right there. And on the page over here, that is a portrait of William Farah that was probably used as a bit of an inspiration for what we see on the $2 banknote today. Where to get these banknotes? Now, one way to get them potentially at face value, which just means the value of the note, $2, is if you're really lucky and you ask nicely at banks. Banks might have them, but they'll only have them if customers have brought them in to cash them in recently. And what tends to happen is the bank will hold them for a little bit before they send them off to the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank destroys the banknotes. So if you're lucky, if you happen to go into a bank and ask nicely and they happen to have some and they're willing for you to buy them back out, which there's no laws against them selling them back out, you might be able to pick some of these up at face value. But apart from that, you can pick them up on, people sell them on eBay. You can get them from coin and banknote dealers. There's auction houses that sell them. I sell them from time to time, and I've got some coming up available in a moment too. And even groups as well, maybe Facebook groups, and even on social media, other people might be selling them and things like that. So there's lots of different ways you can get them, but they're a cool thing to have in your collection because you don't see them these days, and they're genuine Australian currency from a time a little bit further ago. Let me know in the comments if you've got any further information to add about the Australian $2 banknotes. There's probably lots of information out there, and I'm happy to hear it and maybe pass it on to the community.